All right, let's dive into the world of jigsaw puzzles, specifically those massive ones that take over your dining room table. You've sent over a few YouTube videos and an article all about strategies for tackling these like behemoths. It's going to be fun to kind of unpack this and see what we can learn.
I think you'll be surprised by some of the techniques these experts use. They
Yeah.
really kind of elevate puzzling to an art form.
Okay, so let's set the scene here. You've finally found it. You know that amazing puzzle image that you've been dreaming of, but there's just one problem. The box says 5,000 pieces. Suddenly, that dream puzzle starts to feel like a daunting challenge.
It's definitely a step up from your average 500-piece puzzle. And one of the biggest mistakes people make is assuming it's just a linear increase in time and effort.
Oh, tell me about it.
Hmm.
I once dove headfirst into a 3,000-piece puzzle after only doing 1,000-piece puzzles before. Let's just say I learned my lesson about pacing myself.
That's where the advice from one of your YouTube sources, Donald Louise, really comes in handy. He suggests incrementally increasing your piece count. So if you're comfortable with 1,000 pieces, try a 2,000-piece puzzle first. Don't jump straight into the deep end.
Yeah, it's like training for a marathon. You wouldn't run 26 miles on your first day of training.
Exactly. And before you even pick a puzzle, it's a great idea to tap into online puzzle communities. They're a goldmine for insider info on piece quality, tricky sections, and even whether a puzzle's worth your time.
Wait, really? So you're saying I should be doing puzzle research before I even buy the puzzle? That's a game changer. I usually just pick based on the image.
The image is definitely important, but doing a little research beforehand can save you a lot of frustration down the line.
Yeah.
For example, Donald Louise had a rough experience with a 42,000-piece puzzle from a brand he wasn't familiar with. The pieces were loose-fitting, and it made the whole process much more difficult.
Oof, I can only imagine. There's nothing worse than loose-fitting pieces. It's like they're playing tricks on you. So brand familiarity is key.
It can definitely make a difference. And speaking of avoiding frustration, there's this thing called a perfect false fit. It's basically when a piece fits perfectly in multiple spots due to a repeat cut pattern in the puzzle.
Okay, so a regular false fit is annoying enough, but a perfect false fit. That sounds like a nightmare. How do you even spot those?
That's the tricky part. They can be really hard to catch, especially in large puzzles. You might end up building a whole section only to realize it's in the wrong place, and trust me, redoing a large section of a puzzle is not fun.
I bet it's like having to take apart a Lego masterpiece. So what's the best way to avoid those perfect false fits? Do we need to wear special glasses or something?
Well, if the puzzle comes in multiple bags, resist the urge to mix them, especially if you suspect repeat cut patterns. It reduces the risk because those repeat patterns tend to be confined within a specific bag.
So it's like having built-in mini puzzles within the bigger puzzle. That's a good way to think about it.
Exactly. And before we even open those bags, there's another crucial factor to consider: logistics. You need adequate space, and I'm not just talking about table space.
Oh, I know that feeling all too well. I once tried to do a 1,000-piece puzzle on a tiny coffee table. Let's just say it didn't end well.
Think about storage, lighting, and even protecting your work from curious pets or family members. Donald Louise actually builds on separate boards for flexibility. That way, he can move sections around and even store them away when he needs to reclaim his table.
Now that's a strategy I can get behind. I'm always juggling space in my apartment. It's like playing puzzle Tetris just to find a place to work.
And what about the image itself? Any advice there?
Definitely. Stick with an image style you've enjoyed in smaller puzzles. If you love illustrations with distinct sections and clean lines, a 5,000-piece photorealistic landscape might not be the best choice for a first attempt at a larger puzzle.
It's like choosing the right hiking trail. You wouldn't tackle Everest if you've only ever done small nature walks.
Exactly. Know your strengths and preferences. Okay, so now we've chosen our puzzle and prepped our workspace. What's next? The sorting right. But before we get into that, can we talk about Donna Louise's full detailed sort method? I was blown away when I saw that.
It's pretty intense. He literally examines every single piece and creates as many small piles as possible.
And I thought I was meticulous. I usually just sort by general color and call it a day. What kind of details is he looking for in every piece?
Everything. Edge pieces, pieces that have elements from two different sections, even color gradients within a single color. He'll arrange sky pieces from lightest to darkest blue, for example. It's amazing.
Whoa, color gradients. That's next level sorting. I never even considered that.
He's all about breaking the puzzle down into those smaller, more manageable units. I'm curious, what stands out to you the most about his approach?
Honestly, it's the sheer level of detail and the idea of finding those subtle color variations. It seems incredibly time consuming, but I can see how it would make the assembly process so much smoother. It's like creating a roadmap for yourself.
Precisely. And while you're sorting, Donald has another fun tip. Instead of just creating piles, he actually tries to assemble a few small, distinct elements as he goes.
So, like, if there's a small cluster of flowers in the image, he'll try to find those pieces and put them together while he's sorting everything else.
Exactly. He says it adds a sense of accomplishment and breaks up the monotony of sorting. It's like getting a little reward for all your hard work.
I love that idea. It's like celebrating small victories along the way. Now, this is where I always thought the border came in. Assemble the frame first and then fill in the center. But Donald doesn't seem to agree with that approach, right?
He actually advises against building the border first. He thinks it can get in the way, especially with larger puzzles. Instead, he suggests assembling it only as you reach that section of the puzzle.
So no more starting with the edges. My mind is officially blown.
It's definitely a different approach, but I think the key takeaway here is that there's no one right way to puzzle. It's all about finding what works best for you and the specific puzzle you're working on.
And speaking of what works best, I'm dying to know what he suggests for when you hit that inevitable wall. That moment when you're staring at a sea of seemingly identical pieces and just want to give up.
Oh, we've all been there. That's where we'll pick up after a quick break. Don't go anywhere.
All right, so before the break, we were talking about those moments when you just hit a wall while puzzling. What do you do when you've stared at the same pieces for what feels like hours and nothing seems to fit?
Oh, those moments can be so incredibly frustrating. But I think it's important to remember that even the most experienced puzzlers hit those roadblocks. The key is having strategies, to help you push through.
Well, luckily for us, Donald Louise has a few tricks up his sleeve for those situations too, and I have to say some of them are pretty surprising.
Oh, I know. Like his suggestion to build sections on cardstock instead of directly on the puzzle board sounds a little unconventional, but it actually makes a lot of sense.
Right. At first I was like, why would I add an extra step? But then I realized how much easier it would be to move sections around, even store them away without, disturbing the rest of the puzzle.
It's all about working smarter, not harder, right?
Hey,
And, cardstock isn't the only, unexpected tool he suggests. He also has this clever way of utilizing repeat cut patterns, the very thing we were trying to avoid earlier.
wait, so he actually uses those pesky repeat patterns to his advantage. How does that even work?
If he's working on a puzzle with a repeat cut pattern, he'll actually build sections directly on top of the corresponding section in the box lid.
So he's using the image on the box lid as a guide for the piece shapes. That's brilliant. It's like having a cheat sheet built right into the box.
Exactly. And if all else fails, and you're still feeling stuck with a particularly large pile of pieces, he recommends resorting them. I know it sounds tedious, but sometimes as you assemble the puzzle, you notice new details or patterns that you didn't pick up on during the initial sort.
Yeah, it's like the puzzle reveals its secrets gradually as you go along. You start to see those subtle connections you might have missed at first glance.
Exactly. And sometimes those connections aren't just about color or pattern, they're about the shapes of the pieces themselves. Especially when you're dealing with large areas of solid color, sorting by shape can be a game changer.
So instead of having one giant pile of blue sky pieces, you'd separate them into piles for corners, edges, and pieces with 3 tabs.
Precisely. It helps you narrow down the possibilities and makes those challenging sections a lot more manageable. And speaking of managing those tricky bits, I think it's time we turn our attention to the Lone Star College video. They had some great advice on workspace setup and even framing.
Yes, I'm excited to dive into those framing tips, but first I have to know more about their suggestion to use a colander for puzzle prep. It sounds a little out there, but they swear by it.
A colander, that's a new one. I'm intrigued.
Apparently, they recommend dumping all the pieces into a colander and shaking it to get rid of any dust or debris that might be lurking in the box.
That's actually quite brilliant. I can't tell you how many times I've started a new puzzle, only to find myself sneezing from all the dust. A colander is a simple yet effective solution that most people already have in their kitchen.
Right. And who wants to spend hours breathing in cardboard particles? Speaking of practical tips, they also recommend using foam board as a workspace. It provides a smooth surface and makes the puzzle portable so you can easily move it around or store it away.
Ah yes, foam board, a puzzler's best friend. Lightweight, affordable, and it comes in a variety of sizes. Now, in terms of sorting, their approach is a little different from Donald Luis's meticulous method. They suggest starting with broader categories, like edge pieces, whole colors, and distinct features of the image.
That makes sense, especially for someone who's new to larger puzzles. It's a less intimidating way to start the sorting process, and you can always subsort those piles into smaller groups as you get more familiar with the puzzle.
Exactly. It's all about finding a system that works for you and adapting it as you go.
And speaking of adapting, they had some interesting suggestions for when you get stuck. Have you ever tried turning a puzzle upside down?
Turning it upside down. That sounds a bit disorienting. What's the logic behind that?
They say it helps you see the puzzle from a new perspective and can trigger those pattern recognition skills. It's like shaking up your brain a little and breaking free from those mental ruts.
That's fascinating. I've never thought about it that way, but it makes sense. It's
Yeah.
like looking at a problem from a different angle.
Right. And if that doesn't work, their other suggestion is to go back and resort your pieces. You might have misidentified a piece or placed it in the wrong category, especially if you're working with thousands of pieces.
That's good advice. Sometimes a fresh perspective on your sorted piles can make all the difference. Now, before we jump into the third YouTube video, I'm curious to hear more about the Lone Star College video's framing tips. They mentioned a few different approaches, right?
They did. They talked about frames made specifically for puzzles, sticky sheets that can be applied to the back to hold the pieces together, and even a type of frame with a hard plastic backing that holds the puzzle in place without any glue.
That hard plastic backing sounds ideal. It would allow you to display the puzzle and then take it apart later if you wanted to do it again.
Right. It's a great option if you don't want to commit to gluing it permanently. And their final tip for framing was to buy the frame after you've completed the puzzle. Apparently, the final size can vary slightly from what's listed on the box.
That's a great point. I've definitely learned that lesson the hard way with other projects. It's always better to measure twice and cut once, or in this case, frame once.
Okay, so we've explored Donald Louise's detailed approach and the Lone Star College video's practical tips. Now I'm really curious to hear what the How to Solve a Jigsaw Puzzle Quickly video has to offer.
That one is from a channel called Puzzles Please, and it's full of efficiency tips. They have a very systematic approach to puzzling, which I appreciate.
Well, let's not waste any time. Bring on the speed puzzling tips. What's their first recommendation?
One of their first tips is to check the dimensions of the completed puzzle before you start. It sounds obvious, but I've definitely been guilty of starting a puzzle only to realize it's way too big for my table.
Oh, I've been there too. It's like that moment when you realize you've accidentally bought a king-size bed sheet for your twin bed.
Exactly, a bit of a spatial awareness mishap. So, Puzzles Please recommends measuring twice and puzzling once. And they also emphasize the importance of taking a good look at the image before you start sorting.
So it's like familiarizing yourself with the terrain before you embark on the journey.
Precisely. Identify those key features, colors, and patterns that will help you navigate the puzzle. And when it comes to sorting, they had this brilliant idea that I loved, using the bottom or lid of the puzzle box for sorting trays.
Wait, really? That's so resourceful. It's like they're saying, you don't need fancy equipment, just use what you have.
Exactly. Puzzling doesn't have to be an expensive hobby, and their approach to sorting is very practical. They recommend sorting by color, distinct features, and of course those all-important edge pieces. But they have an interesting caveat about border assembly.
Oh, tell me more. I'm always a fan of a good border-related debate.
Well, they say that if the border is all one color, it might actually be easier to start with a more distinct section of the puzzle first.
That's an interesting point. A single color border could be really tricky, especially if that color is repeated throughout the puzzle.
Exactly. It could lead to a lot of false fits and wasted time. So they suggest finding a section with a unique color or pattern that will give you a good starting point.
It's like building a foundation for the rest of the puzzle. And speaking of foundations, they had a reassuring tip for those moments when you're missing one or two crucial border pieces.
Oh, those missing border pieces can be so frustrating. What do they suggest?
They say not to worry too much because those missing pieces often turn up later on as you assemble other sections.
It's like the puzzle gods are testing your patience, but ultimately have your back.
Exactly. It's a reminder to trust the process and not get too hung up on those early setbacks.
And speaking of the process, I was intrigued by their discussion of puzzle piece shapes. They claim there are 6 basic shapes that commonly appear in puzzles.
I know, right? I never thought about it that way, but it makes so much sense. Once you start paying attention to those shapes, it's like unlocking a secret code.
Exactly. And they say that understanding those shapes can help you solve puzzles more efficiently, especially when you're dealing with those tricky areas of solid color. Instead of just randomly trying pieces, you can narrow down your search based on the shape you're looking for.
It's like having an extra tool in your puzzling arsenal.
And what about those dreaded large areas of solid color? Did they have any advice for tackling those?
They did. They suggest looking closely for subtle variations in color tone or small details within that seemingly solid area.
So what looks like one big block of color might actually have subtle gradients or patterns that can guide your assembly. Precisely. It's about training your eye to see those subtle variations. They use the example of smoke from a train. At first glance, it might seem like one big white blob, but if you look closely, you'll notice variations in shading or hints of other colors.
It's amazing how much detail can be hidden within those seemingly simple sections.
Exactly. And the more puzzles you do, the better you become at discerning those subtle differences.
It's like developing a superpower. But even with all these tips and tricks, there are bound to be times when we hit those moments of utter puzzlement right. What do they suggest for when you've tried everything and still can't find the right piece?
They have a couple of interesting ideas for those situations. First, they recommend taking a break. Stepping away from the puzzle for a while can do wonders for clearing your head.
Sometimes all it takes is a fresh perspective. It's like when you're writing and you hit a writer's block. You need to step away and come back to it later with fresh eyes.
Exactly. And if that doesn't work, they suggest trying a different perspective, literally by working on the puzzles from a different angle or even rotating it.
Oh, that's interesting. It's like looking at the problem from all sides, literally.
Right. Sometimes our brains get fixated on a certain way of seeing things, and changing the orientation can break us out of that rut. And if those visual tricks don't work, they have a more hands-on approach that involves spreading out all the remaining pieces and organizing them by shape.
That sounds a bit drastic, but I can see how it would be helpful, especially when you're down to the wire and dealing with a lot of similar looking pieces.
Exactly. It's a way to narrow down the possibilities and make those final connections.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground with these YouTube videos. From sorting strategies and assembly tips to overcoming those moments of puzzle frustration, I'm feeling much more prepared to tackle my next puzzle challenge.
Me too. But there's one more resource we need to explore, that article you mentioned earlier.
Oh, yes, the article on what makes a jigsaw puzzle. It delves into the history, categories, and psychology of puzzling. I have a feeling it'll add a whole new layer to our understanding of this fascinating pastime.
I think you'll be surprised by some of the insights it offers. It goes beyond the practical tips and explores the deeper reasons why we find puzzles so compelling.
I love that. It's like we're piecing together the puzzle of puzzling itself. So, shall we embark on this final exploration?
Let's do it. I'm eager to see what other pieces of the puzzle we can uncover.
Okay, so we've explored a ton of practical strategies from those YouTube videos you sent over.
Yeah.
Now let's kind of shift gears and dive into this article called What Makes a Jigsaw Puzzle? It seems to take a deeper look at the history and the psychology behind this whole beloved pastime.
I think you'll find it quite fascinating. It really gets into the heart of what makes puzzling so appealing, not just the how-tos, but why we're drawn to it in the first place.
Okay, so the article starts by kind of acknowledging that feeling we all know too well. That initial wave of, oh my gosh, what have I gotten myself into when you first dump out all those pieces?
Yeah, it's like staring into a sea of cardboard chaos. But the article reassures us that with the right techniques, even the most daunting puzzle can be conquered.
That's good to know. They also kind of echo the advice we heard from Donald Louise about starting with smaller, more colorful puzzles before you tackle the massive ones. Like, just you're building up your puzzle muscles before taking on the heavy lifting.
I like that analogy. And it emphasizes that choosing the right puzzle for your skill level and interests is key to enjoying the process. Now, they also talk about sorting by color and pattern, which we've already discussed at length.
Yeah, it's a classic technique for a reason. Helps you make sense of that initial chaos and find those early connections. But then they delve into something that really piqued my interest, the different types of puzzles out there.
Ah, yes. I was hoping we'd get to that. Jigsaw puzzles are so much more than just those standard cardboard pieces. What categories did they highlight?
Well, they start with the familiar, those interlocking cardboard puzzles that are probably most people's go-to. But then they branch out into wooden puzzles, which they describe as having a more classic feel and look.
Ah, wooden puzzles. Those often have unique piece shapes and a more substantial feel, don't they? I've always found them quite beautiful.
Me too. And then they take things up a notch with 3D puzzles, which create a three-dimensional object rather than a flat image. I can imagine those being a real challenge, but also incredibly rewarding to complete.
Yeah, you're basically building a sculpture piece by piece. Must be quite satisfying to see it all come together.
And speaking of unusual formats, they also mention shaped puzzles, which break free from the traditional rectangle.
Yes, I love those. They come in all sorts of fun shapes, animals, hearts, stars, and they could be extra tricky because you don't have those straight edges to guide you.
It's like the puzzle's playing hide and seek with you. Okay, so now that we have a better sense of the puzzle landscape, what did they have to say about assembly strategies? Did they offer any new insights? They reinforced a lot of the tips we've already discussed, like starting with the edge pieces and grouping similar colors or patterns together. But they also introduced this concept called the quadrant method.
The quadrant method. That's a new one for me. What's the idea behind that?
You basically divide the puzzle into four quadrants and work on one section at a time. They suggested it's a great approach for group puzzling because each person can take on a different quadrant.
Ah, it's clever. It's like
Yeah.
dividing and conquering the puzzle. And it makes sense for those larger puzzles, especially if you're working with others. What about those tricky, solid color areas? Did they have any special strategies for those?
They had a great suggestion that echoes what we heard in one of the videos. Sort those pieces by shape first. Pay attention to the unique edges and bumps of each piece and group them into categories based on their form. Corners, edges, middle pieces.
It's such a simple yet effective strategy. It's about using all the information available to you, not just the color. And speaking of using what's available, they had a whole section on puzzle accessories, which can be a real game changer.
Oh, yes. Puzzle mats, sorting trays, puzzle boards, they really elevate the puzzling experience. And let's not forget those puzzle sleeves and protectors, which are essential for preserving your finished masterpieces.
Absolutely. If you're going to put all that time and effort into assembling a puzzle, you want to make sure it lasts. They also had some good reminders about storing completed puzzles flat and avoiding direct sunlight to prevent fading.
Yeah, it's like caring for a delicate work of art. But you know what really caught my attention? They had a whole section on the psychology of puzzling. They delve into all the cognitive and emotional benefits this seemingly simple activity offers.
That's something I've always found fascinating. It seems like such a basic activity, but it really engages your brain in so many ways.
Right. They talk about how puzzling can improve problem-solving skills, enhance spatial reasoning, and even boost memory and concentration. It's like a mental workout disguised as a relaxing hobby.
And it's not just about the cognitive benefits. They also highlight the emotional rewards of puzzling, that sense of calm and focus it brings.
It's like a form of meditation. It allows you to escape from everyday worries and lose yourself in the process of creating something beautiful. And let's not forget that incredible sense of accomplishment you feel when you finally place that last piece.
It's such a satisfying feeling, especially after you've invested hours or maybe even days or weeks into a particularly challenging puzzle.
And they also mention the social aspect of puzzling, how it can be a fun and engaging activity to do with friends or family. Some of my fondest memories are of puzzling with my family on rainy days.
Yeah, it's a great way to connect with others and create shared experiences. It's a reminder that puzzles are more than just a solitary pastime.
This article has really opened my eyes to the depth and complexity of puzzling. It's not just about putting pieces together, it's about challenging yourself, finding a sense of calm, and connecting with others.
I think that's a beautiful way to sum it up. But before we wrap up this deep dive completely, the article had one final section that I thought was worth mentioning.
Oh, what's that? I thought we covered it all.
They had a section on speed and efficiency tips, which I thought was interesting, even if we're not aiming to be, speed puzzlers. They re-emphasize some of the strategies we've already discussed, like organizing pieces by shape and using multiple trays for sorting.
Those are always good reminders. It's easy to get overwhelmed when you're dealing with a large puzzle, and having a system in place can make a huge difference.
Absolutely. And they had a specific tip for those uniform color sections that I thought was clever. They suggest grouping those pieces separately based on their shape.
So instead of having one giant pile of blue sky pieces, you'd have separate piles for corner pieces, edge pieces, and so on.
Exactly. It's all about breaking things down into smaller, more manageable units.
Makes perfect sense. And their final tip in this section was a simple yet crucial one. Label your trays.
Ah, yes. Labeling is key to staying organized, especially when you're working with a lot of different categories.
Well, it seems like we've truly explored every nook and cranny of the jigsaw puzzle world. From sorting strategies and assembly tips to the psychology and history of puzzling, we've covered it all. I feel like I have a whole new appreciation for this seemingly simple pastime.
We too. And I hope our listener feels the same way. It's been a fascinating journey, and I think we've extracted some truly valuable insights along the way.
I agree. So, to our listener out there, we hope you've enjoyed this deep dive as much as we have. Remember, there's a puzzle out there for everyone, and no matter your skill level, there's always something new to learn and discover.
And if you come across any particularly brilliant sorting methods or framing techniques along the way, be sure to let us know. We're always eager to learn from our fellow puzzle enthusiasts.
Happy puzzling, everyone!